Hello, and welcome to today's Devotional. I hope you're having a good day. We're in Proverbs chapter 9 today, verse 10. We've been working our way through the early chapters of Proverbs, these preliminary chapters, as it were, the ones that lead into the truly proverbial statements that start in chapter 10. And they're all chapters designed to build up a base understanding of how wisdom works, so that we're able to better use the sayings that come from chapter 10 and on, all those many sayings that are the proverbs of wisdom and how to be wise. But they require this foundation of what it means, what wisdom is all about. And so we've been working our way through that. Here in chapter 9, we have these this sort of the chapter is structured around these two women, one who is wisdom and one who is foolishness, and how they have both prepared a house and a meal and are inviting us into whichever one we choose. And so as we look at these two women, the one at the beginning of the chapter is wisdom, the one at the end of the chapter is foolishness. And in the middle, in these verses in the middle, it's just telling us what kind of person is going to go into which house. The one who's going to accept wisdom is going to be like a wise man, is going to be like this, and the one who goes into foolishness will be like this. And we arrive at chapter 9, verse 10, and here's what it says. It says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Now, this statement has been made actually two or three times already in the book of Proverbs in the earlier chapters. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. And so it's this starting point, and it makes the point a couple of times to really drive a point home. Like, this is important. This is where wisdom begins. The first step, because I mean, we just understood that a wise person is a person who looks to gain wisdom. And there's kind of like well, you need to have some wisdom to get wisdom kind of a thing. And there's like, but how do you start? Well, you start with the fear of the Lord. You start with that understanding of God. And it's really important. It's super important. It's actually foundational. It's the starting point. We make a mistake sometimes when it comes to the pursuit of wisdom or becoming a smart person. We make a mistake. Sometimes we think wisdom begins at conception. The idea that when I first became a person, when the sperm and the egg came together, and there I am, I'm a human being, and in my DNA is wisdom. And we sometimes think that way. Maybe you don't think, what is your DNA? Maybe when you get older in life, you think of it along the lines of, well, inside my spirit, if I introspect, I will find wisdom in here somewhere. It's down in my heart. It's down in there. I just have to meditate on myself, and eventually some wonderful wisdom will bubble up from within me. It's a very, it's a very interesting way of thinking, because we think of ourselves as the fount of wisdom. And it's not true. We are not the beginning of wisdom. We are an empty vessel when it comes to that. What God did do with your DNA is He made you a human with the potential to grow in wisdom. God designed you to have a place within you that's open and able to grow in wisdom, to know Him, as this verse says, and thus become wiser. So God made us with potential, but that's not the beginning place. Something with potential doesn't necessarily realize its potential just because it has it. A cup may have potential to hold water, but that doesn't mean it will hold water. It has to do something. The beginning place of wisdom is not your potential. It's God. In the same way, some people think, well, no, the beginning place of wisdom is when I was born. And you get this idea that all you need for wisdom is experience, right? So I was born, I started having experiences, I got wiser, and as I grow older, I just have more experiences, and so I get even more wiser. And just the act of living, starting at my birth and going on, that act of living in the world will make me a wiser person. And, well, that's not really true either. That's just another version of potential. The years of your life may be a potential for growing in wisdom, but it's not the starting point. That, once again, the starting point is in the knowing of the Holy One, or in the fear of the Lord. It's God. Same way, maybe in our day and age especially, some people think wisdom starts when I go to school, right? When I find a good teacher. So if I have good parents, or if I go to school and I have a really good teacher at school, or I go to university someday, and then I really start to grow in wisdom because I got a good teacher, and we just think I got to get that right teacher. Well, sort of, I guess, as long as that teacher is God, then that's true. But but you won't grow in the wisdom, the true wisdom God designed humanity to have. It begins with him. And that's what it says. It's the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The knowledge of the Holy One, which is just another way of saying God, is understanding. The knowledge of him is understanding. Wisdom begins with God. It begins with the fear of God. Those two ideas are coupled together in this verse as parallels of one another. The fear of God, it doesn't mean that I'm dreadfully afraid of him, that I can't approach him. Not that kind of fear, not terror, but the idea of I respect and understand the potency of God and the knowledge of him. I want to understand who he is. That's where wisdom begins. If you want wisdom, search for God. If you try to find wisdom without searching for God, you whatever wisdom you find may be God's wisdom that he invented, that he knows, but it will never be full. You won't reach that potential because the foundation of it is God. And if you haven't accepted that and you haven't pursued that, you can't get to the potential of wisdom that God designed us for. You want wisdom? Well, search for God and you will find wisdom. Start there. You will find wisdom. So here's the flip side of that. If you have gained a knowledge of God, if you do know God and you're in a relationship with him, then you are growing in wisdom. Sometimes you may think, I don't know that I am. I don't know if there's any real progress here, and you can feel kind of down on yourself because maybe you made the same mistake more than once and you're like, man, I'm an idiot, and it's just I don't know. Well, if you are in a relationship with God, trust me, he actually is helping you grow. You are improving. He is growing you in wisdom. Now we can be poor students and we can get distracted by the woman of foolishness, for instance, too often, and things like that can happen. But as long as we have this, put God in his right place in our life, he's going to keep teaching us and bringing us back to an improved wisdom. If you're not growing in wisdom, if you really aren't, then you do have to ask yourself the question, do I actually fear God? Maybe I don't. Maybe I have God as kind of an ornament on my shelf. He's something I kind of like to believe in, but I don't actually put any faith in him, or I don't actually pursue knowing him. Because if you do have that relationship, you will grow in wisdom. That's what started. The fear of the Lord, the knowledge of God, started the pursuit of wisdom, started the growth of wisdom. And if it didn't, well, maybe you don't have the knowledge of God that you thought you did. Maybe you're not fearing God as you think you do. And you should maybe explore that a little bit and lean in a little more and come to God with a little more intention and say, God, I really want to know you. I really want to understand the Holy One. If you look at your life and you want to see if there's wisdom there or not, a wise person would say, well, how do I know if I'm wise? Well, it's because a knowledge of the Holy One, the measure of wisdom, allows you to see whether you're wise or not, right? And so as I get to know God and I go, there's what wisdom is him and how he is. How do I compare to God, not to some other person, not to some other idea, not to myself? How do I compare to God? Oh, I see. I lack a lot of wisdom. God, help me to be more like you in this area. Help me to be more like you in this thing. And we grow. Then you grow because I have a knowledge of the Holy One, that unique one, the standard. And I have a fear of him and not wanting to be apart from him. And so that will cause me to grow in knowledge. And it will for you too. And if you have those things, you will grow in knowledge. And you can have a certain assurance of that. That's the idea today. God bless you. Hopefully I'll get back on. Last week I hoped to get on, and I didn't. But anyways, hopefully I'll get on again this week, once or twice more. And we'll see you in those videos. In the meantime, keep well, keep pursuing God's wisdom. Take care.